Good day, everybody. Thank you for coming and taking the time to understand about our program and taking the time to uh, allowing me to talk about our program, the Customs and Trade program, and just taking the time to hear us out and understand more about the program. Of course, as we go through this, I will elaborate about the college itself and, of course, into the details about customs and trade. This is the name of the program, Customs and Trade. And if you're thinking about customs and trade and saying, why is it called Customs and Trade? Well, yes, primarily we're thinking about the customs procedures, and primarily we're going to be thinking about or going through the import side legally of how you can bring certain goods or the goods that you can bring into Canada. But there's also the other sides of it too, meaning that we're looking at how to export out of Canada, how implements trade of sending goods to other countries as well. For example, the customs procedures in Canada is going to be different than the customs procedures in the United States. It's going to be different on the customs procedures in Mexico and so forth. However, there is similarities, there is standard formats of what each country is following, and for example, they also have the harmonized system, the short form, the HS code. The first six digits, which describes a product, is a same almost in any country around the world. So yes, we're going to be focused on how to bring things into Canada. I would say that would be the main priority. But there's other things as well. One, also the export, and also on how other countries do their procedures as well, right? As in the customs procedures and bringing goods into Canada. So yes, this is the Customs and Trade Program. This is my name. I'm putting my name here because I am the program coordinator for this course, or for this program, sorry. Uh, to understand about this program, we're going to have definitely this is going to be for 8 month delivery, 2 semesters, and I put a little note there about the importance of having a customs program structure. So maybe some of you guys would, maybe from your experiences, you have seen, maybe tried to take other customs courses from other institutions. And what I would like to say is that, you know, when you have a semester structured uh, for customs, it makes, and if it's done well and organized, which we've done here, it makes a big difference versus when you're, taking out directly from other institutions, right? And the reason why I say that because the amount of information that you can get from uh, customs procedures is quite vast. There's a lot of information there. And the key to this is having the ability to, break it down and find the right information, know where to look and how, and really bear down and understand the material. When we have it like this, it makes it a lot easier for you to grasp that data, know where to look, and have you dedicated in the semester in a semester format, right? And even from my own experience, when you have the knowledgeable instructors here that have the ability, you have the chance to contact them throughout the semester, but also in person as well. And again, it makes a big difference. I can tell you from my own experience. And then it's also um, my opinion. as well. So very important that we have this breakdown, and I'm emphasizing specifically to customs because about the amount of vast information that is there, and we've been able to break it down and have you guys get the most out of all this information and making sure you really understand about customs and trade. Okay. Okay, so another breakdown, again, 2 semestered. We already talked about on the previous slide as well. There's multiple jobs. I think I'll go into this a little bit more later, but some of the jobs, you're working with customs, again, border services, or in general, global trade. Uh, for example, I've been a supply chain specialist, and definitely customs is a major component to supply chain. Also, if you're just a business owner, right, and you're trying to find ways to you're entrepreneur opening a company, yes, you can find certified people. Yes, there's probably people that already have their license, but it's always going to be important to have that information. So if you want to open a customs brokerage, great to have. Even if you open a regular import-export company, also there's a lot of benefit to get something like this. And then, of course, if you're working in those fields, definitely that's going to be beneficial to you as well. Okay, so you're going to get that hands-on experience. As I mentioned here, you're going to get to understand the documentation, the compliance to bring goods in and ship them out. And then, as I already mentioned about the supply chain as well, it's definitely going to help you in regards to the field of supply chain. Again, so as I told you, I am the program coordinator, and this is some of the background. What's important to understand here is, yes, that's my contact information. This is where to get a hold of me. But if you can see the vast experience that I have, right? So I was branched through, originally international business. Then yes, a little bit into business management, but then I went back into, which we can say the international trade. Then, more specifically, even to forms of freight forwarding. I continue to, I have my own company. So also my experience of being a logistics coordinator and so forth. So someone like me that did get the education in this as well helped me. Someone that was originally more of a supply chain or international business focus. And if you guys know these programs are, very broad, and then eventually you can branch off into different things. And in this case, I branched, I did international trade, but then started seeing the importance of, let's say, customs, and definitely went into this field, started to really understand it. Always had a broad understanding because as a logistics coordinator, you touch on to certain things, but then I want to get a little bit more about it. And that has helped me in regards to my supply chain, uh, or I guess we can even say as a supply chain analyst. It's helped me with my company, and I even helped me provide more services to my company. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to say. It's you can be strictly focused about customs. You want to be focused on customs, great uh, program to take. If you're maybe just doing a logistics coordinator, international logistics coordinator, or if you're a little bit into international business, this is still a great thing to do. Okay, so some of the breakdowns we're going to go through. You have what the George Brown's all about. I'll have a little bit of the breakdown of the program itself, the opportunities, and the industry. Okay, so history of George Brown, a well-established college, continued to be a major college, and I would even argue and say in the country itself. right? Always about the practical experience. And again, when I'm talking about customs and trade, that is exactly what it is, right? Practical information which you can immediately take and apply it to your workplace and into the industry, right? We have what's very important about this program is that we have the right people that are facilitating and delivering the material, right? And of course, that is extremely important for any program that you're offering. We have the right individuals that have the academic qualifications and have the industry experience. Okay, so we have that applied research, not just theory, and definitely have that entrepreneur spirit. So finding ways to, like I said, open your own business. George Brown really pushes that, and that's part of our main values. Okay, so we also have the land of acknowledgement. We are deeply invested in this as well. Very important to George Brown. Um, how are we going against the anti-racism? Another pillar and very important to George Brown as well. Okay, and this is the values of George Brown. Okay, so uh, we definitely are, enthused. We definitely are pushing the students to learn and to take that hands-on experience and jump out into the workforce. Okay, so that's our values. Some of the history, furthermore, of what I'm mentioning, right? It was established as early in 1967. It continued to grow. It became, in 2003, it became one of the, or as it says here, one of the first 9 Ontario colleges to offer a bachelor's degrees or degrees, sorry, in 2003, and has continued to expand different programs and so forth. Definitely the international business. Now we have the customs and trade, which is critical, and we are expanding into this and continuing to offering different programs. Okay, so this is the breakdown. We have the customs procedures, right, just giving you a brief understanding of what customs is. It's going to give you the brief overview. Now, this is going to break off into different parts. That's because, again, as I mentioned, it's very vast, the information that you can grasp. Then we're going to get into the export side of it and the sanctions and security, the different programs. Now, you would say that one of the focuses, as I mentioned earlier, is the import, but definitely we have to talk about the export. And one of the main reasons is that any country is going to be concerned, especially about the amount of goods that is coming into the country. They will be, diligent about the export, but the how diligent you have to do in regards to bringing the goods in um, is emphasized. But we do get about the export. We do talk about the certain countries that we cannot deal with, sanctions and so forth. The security programs to make sure that we're protected, knowing where all the goods are or where the goods are coming from. Then getting to the harmonized system, right? This is a very there's a lot of information about this, just like regular or understand the whole customs procedures. This is going to be broken off into 2 parts. Briefly, it's about understanding, categorizing different products, where they stand. And at this point, once you have the harmonized system, then you're going to know how to tax or how much tax is to even bring the goods in, and then maybe later on to resell to others. And how that applies is we usually look at rules in trade, right? Where are the goods coming from? That's going to be based on how much duties or taxes. If you don't know what our duties are, it's another form of of tax, which, if I was to put in simple words, the tax to bring something into the country. And you would look at the rules of origin, and then you look at the trade agreements, right? For example, the biggest trade agreement that we have is the CUSMA, as we call it here in Canada. We call it USMCA in the United States. And then was it now I forgot. But there's also another name in Mexico as well. Um, that's one trade agreement, very important trade agreement. But if you guys are aware of the news, and I'm sure you are, that is even up a big concern. And that trade agreement means there's actually most of the goods that are coming through are 0%. So meaning that it's, you can trade, you can bring something from the United States, a majority of the goods would be actually 0% tax to bring it into the country. So that's an example of trade agreements. Now we're definitely diversifying, trying to find other agreements so we're not so heavily reliant because of the current political issues that we have. Okay. So as I said before, some of the customs procedures are definitely different around the world. The ethics, the morals, and so forth that we have to deal with. How we're gonna give that valuation. So far I've been talking about bringing the goods in, seeing what's taxed and what's not. But even before you get into that, one of the first steps is understanding the value. So as soon as you're bringing something in, the government, the most important is, okay, so what's the value of these goods in Canadian? So that's going to be important. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the career planning and how that applies. Then we have the customs procedures going to the second part, which I've already mentioned, harmonized system, also going on to the second part. Going into the different procedures, but not just procedures, but the compliance, the different rules, the actual rules to, into global trade, audits, being concerned about, even if you're importing something, a lot of times the government can come back and say, okay, can you reconfirm this? That can be based on here in Canada, but then we kind of talk about what can happen on other countries as well, or just the trade itself, the amount of programs, and so forth. So we have the project as well to give it more hands-on, give an idea of what to expect out there, trying to find ways to save on costs because there's if you're not careful, if you're not doing the customs the way you're supposed to, or diligently as you're supposed to, the you can end up paying more duties than you actually need to. For example, if you're importing from one country, there's like for example, Costa Rica. Costa Rica, we have different trade agreements. If not paying attention and you receive the certificate of origin, then quite possibly you can go under their free trade agreement. If it's not under the if you don't pay attention to that, then you might end up going under another agreement, which, for example, is called MFN. And then you end up paying, let's say, a 5% or 6% tax when you could have avoided that and just paid 0% with a certificate of origin. Okay. Mitigating the amount of duty that you have to have, for example. So we go all through that. Right. Here are some of the job opportunities, as I mentioned before. You can be a customs, like you're sticking to the field, but maybe you work for any import or export company, do that coordination, definitely would be an asset and a benefit. Trade compliance, logistics, and supply chain specialist. I guess that is kind of where I was. But also freight forwarding, very important. Freight forwarders definitely can add someone that has information or a diploma or degree or certificate in customs. You have the customs raider and you have the border security officer. As you know, those officers that are at the border, right? So as you're crossing, you have those security officers. This would be a benefit to those individuals as well. Okay. Um, you have what is everybody talking about today? Definitely, we have a lot of things going on. And because we have a lot of things going on, we have, especially when we had the new administration in the United States, new government coming in, all of a sudden, everybody's understanding what tariffs are. We didn't have a deep understanding before, but seems it's very important today, and it was always important, but now it's a strong emphasis because of the changes and trying to implement tariffs on our goods. When there's tariffs, that means the consumer goods that we uh, have is going to be more costly. Okay, it's going to be a lot more costly, and it affects our groceries, right? And this has been emphasized, and even there was an understanding probably at COVID when the pandemic happened, people started to understand the importance of supply chain, importance of customs, and so forth. But it's still not something, I guess the word can be is underappreciated, right? And now it's being emphasized even more. So there's definitely something there where a lot of people don't realize how much cost savings and how important, you know, um, uh, you know, how to manage customs and how important tariffs are, for example. Okay. And there was one example here of which we had, there was a brief time where we had some duties that was implemented. And just from the small duties that was implemented, there was an additional 617 million just by implementing these tariffs. Overall, as of right now in Canada, because we've built our economy as to be a global economy, and the trend was definitely to continue to break down these tariff barriers. The tariffs were minimal, right? Minimal as in a lot of them you can find free trade agreements. So we had zero tariffs, zero duties to bring stuff in. There was a big portion of that, or very low percentages. The exceptions, which you may hear occasionally, would be that some certain industries, protected industries, even in Canada, even though that I've already expressed that Canada is a global economy, that they have certain industries, certain commodities where we actually protect here. And then if you were to import, let's say, for example, some dairy products, you can see really high tariffs, something as uh, ridiculous of 250% tax, let's say, for example, or duties. But other than that, Canada has been continuously as low tariff, trying to minimize the amount of duties and trade. But now we've reached, there was kind of a wrench thrown into that trend since the Americans changed their views on, lowering international tariffs. Okay. Furthermore, why we want to take this program, right? I've explained this before, but we have the right individuals to teach it with the right academic background, the right experience, and some people are still active in this field. For example, me, right? I'm still active in this field. I still have my own business as well. Um, but we have these type of individuals, and we find it's very important to give this information, this hands-on information to the students. Okay, so it's again, as I broke it down already, vast amount of information to break it down to have the structured information. For example, I give the D memorandum, right? This is a whole breakdown of our basic understanding for customs workers and for clients, importers, exporters to understand about the procedures. Will help break that down for you and make it, a lot easier for you to understand as a student. This can help you as I mentioned already, as an importer, as a business owner, entrepreneur, and or if you want to go into the field, it can help in many ways. If you want to get into the customs field, this will definitely help you, uh, and definitely it's going to help enhance your knowledge. Okay. If there's any other information and you need to contact me, I've sent my email already. This is the George Brown website. Right here it is again, Matthew Mavrianis. You can send me an email. Definitely would reply to you as soon as possible. Any information, I would be glad to answer. Well, I'll be glad to answer it. I would be glad to help you uh, any step of the way. Okay, so I hope this information session helps. All the best, and if you can reach me at this information here. Thank you.